Ayinger Bock.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. Today, one from Ayinger, and it must be the only one that I haven't tried from Ayinger. And why, I don't know. But here I am trying it. And it's their Winter Bock. Now, before we start, I've done a little bit of research on this, and there is a point of view that this is a rebadged beer. And it's supposedly, I don't know, I can't tell you, but supposedly it's a rebadged Celebrator Dopplebock. If it is, well, I do question why Ayinger would do that. Possibly because marketing, possibly because they need another beer to their range. But I really don't know. I really don't have an opinion on that. The only way I could find out is if I compared them back to back. But again, I'm baffled as to why Ayinger would do that. I don't think it's a practice among German brewers. I don't think I've seen that before. Don't get me wrong, I have seen, or I have heard of, with fairly good substantial evidence, beers being rebadged. Now, that could mean, when I say rebadged, you know, they change the livery on the label and stuff like that. That's a given, that, you know, that happens more or less with every brewer, really. I'd say they rebrand the bottle. You know, for example, Fuller's have done it with London Pride, and for the detriment, in my opinion. But I do know that a lot of brewers rebadged their beers or changed the labels of their beers to be more web friendly. Now, what does that mean? Well, you know, if you're going to be advertising your beers online, you want a label or a logo that's quite easy to produce online as a static image, if you know what I mean. But there's also other reasons for it as well. Hobgoblin, here's a good example. Now, Hobgoblin, I really used to like the labels on Hobgoblin. They were really good, very artistic, full colour labels. And they stopped doing them. And now they've got just nondescript nonsense on their labels. And in my opinion, that's a cost-cutting exercise. And it's a cost-cutting exercise because it cuts down on the cost of printing them labels, because obviously the more colours you use, the more expensive it's going to be. But there you go, that's my take on that. But Ayinger, great brewery, one of my favourite breweries, in fact, from Bavaria. Their Dunkel is absolutely amazing, and the Altbairisch Dunkel, the unfiltered version, is absolutely sublime. It's probably one of the best German beers I've ever tasted. I really did enjoy that when I reviewed it on the channel. If you want to have a gander, there is the search function there. Oh, by the way, I've also created a new playlist now. I've created a playlist for Czech beer as well. I was previously, stupidly, I don't know why I did it, and every time I did do it, I was questioning why. And the other day I was going to do it, and I thought, no, I'm going to create a playlist. I was categorising it as world beer, and Czech beer deserves to have its own playlist because it is a very, very influential country when it comes to brewing beer. But there you go. No Czech Republic, stroke Bohemia, Moravia, no Pilsner, no lager. That's how influential that is. So it definitely deserved its own playlist, and now it's got it. Anyway, back to Ayinger. Yeah, one of my favourite brewers. I really do like everything they do. Don't think I've had a bad one from them. The worst I've had from them is just above average beer, and I think that was their light Weizen. I thought that was a bit light on flavour, but it was still a good beer, don't get me wrong, and they really are a good brewer as well. And as the name would suggest, they're from a place called Aying in Bavaria, and what they do is good. I have no complaints about them. Judging by your comments on the various reviews that I've done, there are a lot of fans of Ayinger out there, and you can get it over in this country in certain German-themed bars. And when I see it, I always go for it. I first discovered them in, sadly now gone, there used to be a German restaurant called Hermann the German. Just literally just out, as I walked out of where I worked, I could walk for a minute and I would be in this German bar. And they did Ayinger beers, and they did the Altbayerisch Dunkel. That's where I first discovered it. And if you look 2 years ago on the channel, my first review of the Ayinger Altbayerisch Dunkel, it really did blow my mind at how good it was, and it's remained so ever since. I really enjoy it, and if I ever see it when I'm out and about, then I will always buy some. Now, sadly, this isn't available in supermarkets, so I had to get this from the House of Trembling Madness. But hopefully, one day you'll be able to buy this stuff in supermarkets. And that comes with a sort of double-edged sword, because if you're brewing on a much bigger scale, will it taste the same? Will corners be cut? Who knows? Now, just want to talk a little bit about the brewing process. Now, what they've got on their website, and Ayinger do this, and it really pisses me off, to be honest, but they don't give you any brew sheet at all. But they do give you a little indication of how it's brewed. And what they use here, and I want to talk about this is the, another example of the decoction mashing. I used to call it decoction mashing for some reason. Don't ask me why, but it's decoction mashing, and that's quite popular in Germany among German brewers. It's a little bit controversial because some people say you don't need to do it anymore because the quality of malt is better. The advantages, supposedly, of decoction mashing is that it brings out more of the malt character in beer, but it also helps to improve the foam of the head. So you could argue that that's worth doing. It's very labour intensive. You have to know what you're doing, because you could ruin the complete boil or your complete batch if you get it wrong. And it's basically 3 stages of temperature changing on the beer. Decoction mashing is a very skilled and labour intensive brewing process, but when it does work, you do get fantastic flavours. Now, as I say, there's a school of thought among some brewers that it's unnecessary to do. I don't know. I don't think they're brewing beer as good as Ayinger, so there may be something to decoction mashing. But there is quite a lot of German brewers that do use that process, and hence the reason possibly why German beer is so good. Once they do that, they lager this for 16 weeks, and that's quite a hefty lagering process. But that's roughly about 3 months, and a lot of brewers won't do that. They would rather just leave it for a month, possibly even 2 months at the max. But 3 months is quite a long time, and it does help you get more flavour from your beer. It certainly gets rid of all the nasties, etc. This is a seasonal beer, according to Ayinger. You can only get it from November to January. It is now November, so this is, well, it looks like an early batch. The sell-by date on this is the 6th of the 9th, 2023, and it was brewed on the 6th of the 9th, 2022. Well, that doesn't make sense. Oh, does it? Does it? Let me see, because this would have had to, I've got to do some maths here, and maths definitely isn't my strong point. So this is saying 6th of the 9th, 2022. That is supposedly when it was bottled. So this would have had to have been brewed in June, in the summer months. And it's now the 15th of November, and this is saying it's got a stamp on it of the 6th. So this is actually fairly fresh, which is interesting. And that's really all I can give you about the beer facts. As I say, I've reviewed a hell of a lot of Ayinger beers on the channel. I don't really want to go over the history again. If you want to see the history, just look at any Ayinger beer reviews that are on the channel and you will be filled in there. Anyway, let's stop gassing. Let's get on to the next section. Righto, this is 6.7% beer. This is the same ABV as the Celebrator, which again is another fuel for the speculation that this is a rebadged Celebrator Dopplebock. Who knows? It contains the usual malted barley hops, barley malt hops, and that's it. Obviously, it's got Brau water in it, Brauwasser, und Yeast. Und Hefe, if you want to have the German pronunciation. And that's it really. There's not much else there on the back of the bottle. There is, let's get this autofocus doing its thing. There's the protected status of the beer. This is a genuine Bavarian beer, and there's the coat of arms of the Bock family. You've all seen that. That's been on lots of German beers on the channel, and it's also available on the, or displayed on the Bayern Munich kit. If you are a fan of football, which I am, but I'm not a fan of Bayern Munich. Anyway, let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. Right, I'm using this glass. This is like a small half-pint tankard. They do suggest, or in the photos on the website, they do suggest using what's known as a mass. A mass, of course, is what most people will call a stein. There is a difference. A stein, as the name would suggest, is made out of stone. It's earthenware. The actual glass one is not called a stein. It's called a mass. Now, I did have one up here. I don't know where the fuck that's gone. I was downstairs. I never use them, to be honest. I just think if you're going to put a litre of beer in there, by the time you get to the bottom, it's going to be warm. It's not going to be fresh. And if it's on a sunny day, you know, that's going to get a little bit light struck. So I don't use them, to be honest. I'd rather just keep going through just 500ml glasses and filling it up that way. It just remains fresher. The beer remains colder. And in the words of Errol Brown from Hot Chocolate, everyone's a winner. Anyway, let's get this open. Right, and I do like these caps for my Ayinger. It's got like a little, what they call it, a vignette or something, vignette, a little fucking oil painting of the brewery. Very nice indeed, a very nice touch. One for the collection, yeah. Alright, let's get it in ye olde glass. Oh, that's dark. Well, it is a Dopplebock, so what do you expect? Well, that's lively. It's very lively indeed. Now, if you look at that, I don't think, you're not really going to capture that colour with this camera. It's very fucking blurry. That autofocus is dog shit. But this is reminiscent of Guinness. Now, if you look at it from a distance, that looks very, very dark. But if you hold it up to the light, you can just see very, very subtle traces of ruby that are coming through on that. The head is huge for some reason. Don't know why, but let's get some of the aroma. Oh, that's interesting. There's a lot of roasted malt character on that, and it's almost bitter. Now, you wouldn't expect that from a normal Dopplebock, because Doppelbocks, they do have quite a lot of sweetness on them, sweet malt character. But this, it does, don't get me wrong, it does have some of that sweetness on the aroma, but there is also a little bit of that roasted bitterness as well. And I'm going to go through this review without using the adjective roasty toasty. Nothing boils my piss and grips my shit when I see that little Welsh fella going roasty toasty. What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean? If it's roasted malt, try and describe the roasted malt flavour. Roasty toasty means fuck all. But there you go, that's just me. Calm down, stop slagging off other beer reviewers. You're not that much better yourself. It does smell good, I have to say. Very big fruity character on that. But there is a tinge of bitterness on there. Roasted bitterness, which you don't normally get on a Dopplebock. This is interesting, and I'm just looking at it now. I am still seeing that ruby character on there. So it really does look like a Dopplebock. Smells nice. Let's see what it tastes like. Bottoms up. Oh, nice. Very nice indeed, I have to say. Again, now I've just been reviewing a lot of the good quality strong ales from from Fuller's and from Bateman's as well. You know, I'm thinking stuff like Golden Pride, the Fuller's Vintage Ale, the Bateman's Vintage Ale, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of that character in there. There is no hop character on this as such, in the true sense of a Dopplebock. This is all about the malt, and it's all about the sweetness of that malt, which does give it a very, very fruity type aroma. Dried fruit, dried dark fruit, I should say. But there is a slight bitterness to it, and that bitterness does tend, I think, to come from the roasted malt. Now, I do remember reading on the website that it said that they called it coffee. It's not coffee. I don't think it is. It's more of a dark chocolate, or a chocolate malt. That's what I'm sort of getting, not coffee. But it's lovely. This is really, really nice. Now, I can see why people would say that this is just a rebadged celebrator, because it does certainly look like a Dopplebock, in my opinion. Now, you might be looking at that and thinking that looks more like a stout or a porter, but, and I really hope, I really wish there was a way that I could show you this. I'm just putting this white bag behind it, and is that going to do it? No, even then you're not going to see it, are you? Oh, bugger. Is there a bit of paper? Let me see if I can find a bit of paper. Does that doesn't really do it either. If you didn't know better and you were told that this was a lager, you'd say it was a European dark lager, or even a black beer maybe. It's that dark, but just holding it up to the light, and I have got it held up to the light because I've got, it's like fucking Blackpool illuminations in here now that I've decided to try and do some experimentation with my cameras. But it is ruby coloured, but it's very, very dark ruby, if you know what I mean. Let me dive in again, see what's going on. It's lovely. It's really nice. But you know what? I don't think it's got as much character as the English stuff. You know, the vintage ales, now don't get me wrong, them vintage ales are something else. But even the Golden Pride, I don't think it's got as much character. But I'm not trying to take anything away from it. But what I would urge you to do, well, if you want to, if you're a bit of a beer geek like me, get yourself some of this and get some Golden Pride at the same time and compare the two. You really will get the English hop character that comes through on the Golden Pride, and a little bit of that invert sugar. But you'll also see the difference between English beer and German beer, the characteristics of strong English beer and strong German beer, and how they differ. This is quite sweet, very rounded, all about the malt, got some nice bitterness to it, not too big, subtle bitterness to it, but it's very rounded. It's very, very easily drinkable as well. I do find this goes down very nicely indeed. No trace of ethanol whatsoever. Really good. Really, really good. Now, again, another conundrum for you. They do this stuff, 6.7% in a 500ml bottle. Their Celebrator Dopplebock is done in 330ml bottles. So work that one out. I don't know what they're trying to achieve there, but that's what they do. But I'll tell you something, I really am enjoying this. This is nice. Now, you may not think it, because usually I'd be fucking going mental about how great this is. But after trying quite a lot of them English strong beers, you know, the Fuller's Golden Pride, the 1845, the Vintage Ale, the Bateman's Vintage Ale, this, how can I put this politely? And I know I love Doppelbocks, don't get me wrong, it's one of my favourite German styles of beer. But I just think that the English stuff is just a little bit more interesting. It's got a lot more going on in terms of flavour, in my opinion. This is nice. It's rounded, it's fruity, There's a bitterness to it. Very drinkable, full-bodied, very nice and full-bodied. Head retention is fantastic, I will say that. And again, that comes back to my point about the decoction mashing, or the triple decoction mashing. You got some great head retention on that. The English beers, although slightly stronger, 8%, 8%, the Golden Pride, the head dissipated really quickly, and of course it's going to do that because of the ethanol content. But the point I was originally trying to make is, in my opinion, that the English beer is more complex. There's much more subtle flavours to get your noggin around if you want to analyse those flavours. And the two beers are great, or the two beer styles I think are great. But whereas, I don't know, a month, 2 months ago, I would say, well, Dopplebock is my favourite. I think, well, the English beer certainly has really turned my head when I really delved into it. Certainly the stuff from Fuller's, it just, I don't know, it just pegs it back, if you know what I mean. Whereas I used to think Dopplebock it's a great style of beer. Why aren't the English doing stuff like this? Blah, blah, blah. We are. And in my opinion, we are doing it just as well, if not slightly better, because there's a lot more flavour going on. Now, I know taste is subjective, and these are two, I mean, if I'm comparing Fuller's to Ayinger, they're two great brewers. I will say that a lot more goes into the English beer, in my opinion. Yes, you got your triple decoction mashing, but when it comes to the ingredients, there is a hell of a lot more going on, especially with the yeasts, you know, the flavours you're getting from the yeast. And the malts, the English malts as well. And I've always said this, English malt, where malt is grown in a maritime environment, supposedly that is the best environment to grow it. We do have a unique situation in the UK where we grow hops in a maritime environment as well, and it does give it unique flavours, which I don't think the Germans quite get with their, not only their Reinheitsgebot, which limits them to what ingredients they put in, which, to be honest, you know, they could put anything in if they wanted to, as long as it didn't end up in the final in the final products. But the point I'm trying to make quite badly is that English beer, don't write it off, because it would give this a run for its money, put it that way. But this is good, don't get me wrong, this is very, very fucking good. Oh, even more bitterness now as it's warmed up slightly. And I'll take it back what I said about the coffee. I could see why they'd say it tastes like coffee. To me, though, it's like very, very bitter, dark chocolate. That's what I'm getting from it. But you can argue semantics. The two tastes, in my opinion, when it comes to beer, are very similar. But I like this. This is a great beer, and yet another winner from Ayinger. So what is the verdict on Ayinger Winterbock? Yeah, it's a great beer. I really do like this, and it's one of the beers that you should try in winter, in my opinion. It's got that real big fruity flavour, and again, I'm going to compare it, and I have done in the past. I'm going to compare it to the English strong ales, but it's got all the fruitiness of them English beers. It just doesn't have the hop character, in my opinion. There is a slight bitterness on this that's coming from the roasted malt. Ayinger say it's a coffee style flavour. I think it's more of a dark chocolate. That could be because this is relatively sweet. It's got sweet malts in there. But either way, it's a great beer. I really do like that. The mark I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Now, I think there's better Doppelbocks out there. They've called it a Winterbock. Winterbock isn't really a style. I think Winterbock is more to do with the period of availability. So they say, obviously, on the Ayinger website that you can only get this from November to January. You can buy it then, but it will last a little bit longer. Certainly good for winter, but I would drink this in summer as well. It's one of them beers that I think, you know, if you did drink this cold. I wouldn't recommend drinking it very, very cold. I'd say drink this at cellar temperature, and you really will get all the flavours. And it's about cellar temperature right now. And I'm getting a little bit more of that bitterness that they're talking about, which I wasn't getting initially. That's really good. That is really nice. I do like that. I think that's a worthy 9 out of 10. I definitely recommend it. You can get this from the House of Trembling Madness. That's where I got this from. I just had an order put in for the House of Trembling Madness. I've got 3 bottles of Tint Meadow. I'm spreading the word about Tint Meadow. I bought one for myself, one for my mate in Germany who actually loves it. He reckons it's one of the best beers he's ever tasted. And I've got another one for my mate Andrew who's never tasted it, but I keep raving onto him how great it is. So I've got a bottle for him, and I know he's going to love it as well. The Ayinger. What have we got with the Ayinger? Ayinger Winterbock, £3.40. That's not bad. I think it's worth it. I think it's a very nice beer. If you can't get that, get the Celebrator. That's another really good Dopplebock from Ayinger. But as I say with Ayinger, you won't go wrong with them. Their beers are just really good because they know what they're doing. And I go as far as to say, if you ever see any Ayinger beers available, just buy them, because you will not be disappointed, in my opinion. But there you go. And remember, beer is working class champagne.